They were a young couple, striking out against the world. She was in love with him, and she appeared to be very happy. But there was something about him that I just didn't quite like.
I feared my father. Little things would set him off.
He needed control.
My sister and I thought this sort of behavior was normal.
She wasn't his wife. She was a possession. And he was not going to let anybody or anything take his possession away from him.
This was so cruel. This was evil.
My sister Jenny and I were very, very close when we were younger. We were about 1.5 years apart. When we were going to elementary school, we would strap on our skates, and our dog Freckles, he was a big Dalmatian dog, big fat one. He would pull us on the sidewalks of the school, and that was one of my fondest memories of her. We were always together. We were very, very tight. When I was 11 and my sister was 9.5, my mom separated from my dad and we moved from California to Maryland. I was not getting along with my mom all that well. And so I moved back to California to live with my dad. My sister and I would keep in contact, phone calls and letters. That's when she met Michael. She was very young. She wasn't but 14 years old or so. The first time I met Michael, I have to say, there was something about him inside that I just didn't quite like, and I could never put my finger on it. He had an immaturity about him, being very boastful. When you meet these people that are just all into themselves, like they're the greatest person in the world and the entire world revolves around them, that was Michael. But I believe that he filled a hole in her life that she was really yearning for. She was in love with him, and she appeared to be very happy. Jenny eloped with Michael when she was about 15, 16 years old. She had told me that she was pregnant, and my mom was definitely not happy with the situation, but she accepted the situation. And at that point, Jenny went to live with his parents down in Virginia. I met his dad a couple times. He was very gruff. He was a very stern father. And his mother, she was very dutiful, making sure that the dinner's on the table every night, making sure that everything's clean, the dishes are washed. Jenny seemed right at home. She built a life with him. They would go camping, they would go places together. They were a young couple, striking out against the world. And it at least appeared from the outside that they were a happy couple. About 10 years later, Melissa came along. And now with 2 children, the financial strain on the family, of course, it grows.
My mom worked a lot of odd jobs. She worked at a pizza place, she worked at a Mexican restaurant, and she ended up following in my grandmother's footsteps, and she worked in hospice care and took care of people.
She kept her nose to the grindstone. She worked on her schooling, and she got her RN license. She was very much into the nursing field. Michael never held down a job for very long. Every time I talked to my sister, She was telling me that, oh yeah, Michael got fired from another job or he quit this job. And so my sister had to financially support the family, and it was a constant struggle for her.
She would also do as many odd jobs as she could. She would do people's taxes, and she sold Avon to try to keep money coming into the house. My father retired very young. He worked as a maintenance man at a popular hotel chain, and he said he dropped a bird bath on his foot. I never saw him limping or anything, but that's the reason he said he was retiring. After my father retired, he really became a recluse. He would just hide in his garage and just scroll eBay. He would buy all these collectible Tupperwares from the 70s. He would buy Beatles bobbleheads and records, and he would never listen to them. He would never use these things. He had multiple guitars and this giant firearm collection. He just wouldn't share a common space at all with anyone. He wouldn't even eat dinner at the same time as us. He would just look at eBay all day, all night. That's all he did.
He just spent. It was like he was just buying just to buy. I started to see that maybe it was because he needed control over it. As a child with his father, he was actually controlled. However, the spending was something where he was in control. He hadn't worked in years. He wasn't supporting the family like a mature man and husband should do. You take away the self-worth of a person, it's hard to be able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And I believe because of that controlling nature that was placed upon him, he ended up doing the same because that's what he felt comfortable with. That was his life. My husband and I decided that we'd had enough of California, and so we decided to move back to Maryland. And so my sister Jenny offered to go ahead and let us move in. In that month that I was there, I would hear the arguments. I would hear mainly Michael yelling at her, and my sister would be just trying to appease him. And I witnessed that on many, many occasions, pretty much almost on a nightly basis. Any respect that I really had for Michael dissipated very quickly at that point. I'll just be honest with you, I was thinking that Michael was a bum.
I never really saw the love between my parents. He didn't show her kindness or anything. He just continued to do nothing but abuse her. My father would do all of these disrespectful things. He would shove her against the wall or hip check her and call her the N-word. And he would belittle her any chance he got.
Her and I discussed the relationship just very briefly, but she really didn't want to talk about it. I knew my sister was in trouble, but I really didn't know how bad things were.
I was 4 years old. And I remember chaotic screaming. He took the back of my sister's neck and slammed her against the bed frame in our room. My mother was sitting on the stairs, holding my sister's head together. All I remember was her saying, "It's okay, honey, just stay calm, while we waited for the EMTs. I don't know if my mom didn't report him to the police because she was scared that we would end up on the street, or she really thought that all relationships were this way. My sister and I didn't know anything else, so of course we thought this sort of behavior was normal. When my sister turned 16, she got married and moved out. I feared my father. I remember I climbed onto the roof of our home because he was afraid of heights and I knew he wouldn't follow me. Little things would set him off. Would always tense up and you could never tell what he was thinking. And then he would just go for you. The first time my father threw me out of the house, I was 14 years old and it was snowing. It became a rather common occurrence for him to throw me out. It was always over something stupid. I would have to go find a couch or a friend to stay with. Really around the age of 15 on, I was no longer in the home. I would always ask my mother, why do you let this happen to me? And she would go, oh, honey, I can only control myself. We just lived in fear and just tiptoed and walked on eggshells, and he just did whatever he wanted.
Jenny would never really open up to me. She may have been embarrassed to say that, hey, you know, things aren't hunky-dory here in paradise anymore. I, to this day, do not really know exactly why she stayed with him. I believe that she didn't want to throw away what she had built with her family. My mom was living in Edgewater, Maryland. She had been in a car accident and she'd been having some really bad trouble with her ankle. And so my sister said, well, I'm going to go ahead and bring her to my home here in Virginia. She put her in a spare room that they had, but then they decided that they would do an addition onto the home with a living room and a room for my mom to live in, her own bathroom. My mom got right around $150,000 for the sale of her house, and $72,000 went into the remodel of the home. My mom would break me fairly often. She asked me point blank, why are they still charging me $2,500 a month to live here when I paid for doing this addition for my own room? At that point, I felt very helpless. This should not be. Why is she getting charged any money? You know, other than maybe food. And Jenny's reply back to me was that, I know, Susie, I know. I realized that she was completely powerless to do anything. I could tell she felt horrible about it, but she had no choice.
My father's spending was out of control. The money had to come from somewhere. I know they were refinancing multiple times as well, just to try to keep it going. My mom just didn't have a say in that house at all.
My mom was now being taken advantage of. My sister, by far, had been being taken advantage of. She needed to get away. My mom needed to get away, but there was no place for either of them to go. It's a horrible feeling knowing that somebody is in a situation that they can't get out of, and you can't help them.
I told her, Mom, this isn't normal. Mom, he's abusing you. And I was giving her examples. And that's when she really kind of started to slowly think of the idea of trying to escape.
All of a sudden, out of the blue, get a phone call from Michael saying, yeah, Jenny left me. Do you know where she is? If I'd known what the end result would have been, I certainly would have done something.
The first time my mom thought about leaving was in 2014. She had realized that she was in a loveless marriage, and she had started to see how bad the abuse really was. One day she left work. She didn't tell him that she had put in her 2 weeks' notice, and she drove straight from her job to my house. And I was thrilled.
I had no idea she had even left him. But I received a phone call from Michael, and he was very, very upset. And he was imploring me if I knew where Jenny was. He was very emphatic. He wanted to know where she was. I immediately called my sister. She told me that he had taken a gun and he had pointed it to her head. And he had told her, if you ever leave me, I will kill you.
That was the turning point.
When she told me that, I knew who he was. And I knew what situation she was in. And so I asked my sister, well, what about Mother? Because now my mom was still in the home with him and his mother, and Jenny's not there. And she replied, I know. And still to this day, I feel a little bit guilty because I asked her, what about Mother? And I believe she felt a responsibility to our mom, and that's probably one of the main reasons why she went back.
My father was just calling and messaging and leaving all these voicemails. I think it was just so overwhelming.
You have 8 new messages.
That she decided to give it a try again. We walked on the beach, and she just cried, but she put on a brave face. And I still have that picture of her by the ocean, smiling, but there's a sadness, too. I knew she was afraid of what was going to happen when she got there.
She wasn't his wife. She was a possession. And he was not going to let anybody or anything take his possession away from him.
Soon after she got home, maybe a few days or a week, she called me and told me that things were better, things were doing good. He promised her that he would get a control on his spending. They came up with this idea that they were going to bring patients to the home, and then she wouldn't have to go somewhere to work anymore, and that she wouldn't have to work as hard.
Michael's father passed away, and now there was an empty room, and so they decided to go ahead and get a business license and open the home for elderly patients, receiving a monthly check for doing so. They called their home the Heflin home. And it started with my mom and 2 others. And then when my mom passed away, then she was taking care of 3 elderly folks. In early 2016, my current husband and I took a trip out there for a couple days. I noticed that there were a bunch of cameras up around inside the home, and I asked my sister what they were for. And she had told me that if an elderly person fell, sometimes they might not even know how they fell. And so having a camera system was just good insurance. But they didn't have any downstairs, which is where her and Michael lived, because they never had any elderly down there.
There were 16 cameras around the house, but the 4 main ones pointed into the kitchen, the residential living room, outside, and the storage area that used to be the carport. And that was right outside of my father's garage. My mom's day would start very, very early, sometimes as early as like 4:30 in the morning.
She would start her mornings by getting everybody up, washing them, feeding them. She would take them to doctor's appointments, and she would care for them all the way through the day.
She didn't get very much time to herself at all.
When my sister had 3 residents in the home, she was pulling down about $11,000 a month. And the only expenses they had, of course, was the mortgage and utilities and food. But there was one person in the equation that was going to upset everything that she had worked for.
About 2 months in, he started spending again.
Brand new Bowflex machine, brand new exercise bike. There was all this ham radio equipment. I know that stuff's not cheap. And there was a tremendous gun collection. You can see where the money was being spent, and it wasn't on her.
All the promises that he had made, he went back on. My mom was exhausted from working all the time, and things were worse than ever.
There was one time that we were just walking around Winchester, and then my sister got a phone call, and it was Michael. And he was telling her, "You need to get home. You need to get home right away." We had only been gone for like 20, 30 minutes. And then she looked at me and she said, "I'm sorry, I have to go home." My sister was under his total control. When Jenny came to the realization that things were not going to get better, she decided she was going to leave Michael.
So one day she was delivering Avon, and I think she had let slip that things were not as it seemed at home. And this absolutely shocked her customer, and they really wanted to help her. So they put her in touch with a realtor out in California. She contacted this realtor. She told him what the situation was, that she was trying to get out, trying to escape. And the realtor said that he might have a room for rent in his own home. He was like, "I would love to have a feminine touch around here." He said that he was widowed. And it wasn't so much flirting, but it was a kindness that she really was not used to. So she had a place to go. She started packing. It's not like my father even noticed. He didn't notice. Half her clothes were packed up and mailed to my house.
She finally came to the realization that this is over.
I remember the day she was going to leave very clearly. I couldn't get a hold of my mom. I figured she left her phone downstairs and was caring for a patient. And then I got a call from her. She frantically whispered into the phone, "Melissa, he found out that I'm leaving. I need to leave now." And I was offering to come and get her, but she didn't want to put me in danger. And then she said, "Oh no, he's back. I've got to go." And she hung up.
Frederick County 911.
Ma'am, could you send an ambulance and a police car to 215 Stafford Drive? There's been a shooting.
215 Stafford Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
Who's been shot?
Me and my wife got in a terrible argument. I caught her in an affair, and I just shot her, and I swear to God, I didn't mean to do that.
Where is she right now?
Laying in the bathtub. What I'm going to do is this. I've got to put my belt on, the rest of my clothes on, and put my shoes and socks on, and be out front. I'm going to have my hands in the air, tell the officers.
Yeah, I understand. Is she awake?
Yeah, she's a gurgling in there. She's breathing. If the ambulance gets here quick, she might be saved.
Okay, are you... Okay, where's the gun?
I have laid it on the floor. I'm going to be waiting for the police out front.
Okay.
Thank you.
I received a call from my lieutenant. He advised that a female was shot by her husband. Deputies responded to the scene. Mr. Heflin was detained without any issues. They located Mrs. Heflin in a bathtub. She sustained a gunshot wound. She was taken to the Winchester Medical Center, and then from there, they flew her to a Nova hospital.
I was scrolling on the local radio chatter page, 200 block Stafford Drive, man shoots wife. I was dizzy and shaking uncontrollably. I remember running through the hospital. And I was just so relieved that she was alive. And it didn't really matter anything else.
Oh my God, he did it. First time in my life, I literally dropped to my knees. And I stood at the end of her bed, and I looked at her, and I knew that she had endured something that no human being should endure. They had to remove her eye. It was beyond repair. They had a procedure the very next morning to try to connect a vein in her arm because it took the brunt of the shotgun blast. Her arm actually saved her life.
She survived so much. There was multiple surgeries on her brain. And she actually started doing a little bit better, so we got very hopeful.
Within 2 or 3 days, I could tell that she knew I was there, and she knew that Melissa was there. She didn't know where she was, but she knew that we were there.
Mr. Heflin, I'm behind you. I don't want to startle you. How are you?
I'm better.
We were conducting an interview with Mr. Heflin at the Frederick County Sheriff's Office.
We run a small nursing home. She had to go upstairs, so I see her phone laying there. God must have made me pick that phone up. I picked the phone up, and there was some man on there she was talking to.
He was on the other end of the phone?
He was texting.
Texting, okay.
Texting. Well, what happened was, after I found him on there, I got really mad about it. I said, look, I thought we had things straightened out. And she came up and told me she'd had multiple affairs. When she went 3 years ago to stay with my daughter, she took a man down there with her. Well, she point blank hit me with all this, and it just broke my heart, officer. Broke my heart.
He was putting it all on her. All the problems in their relationship was because of her. It was about everything that she did wrong.
Well, my heart's been breaking all day. She should have just left. But no, she wanted to stay a month until her boyfriend could get a house for him down in Florida. Well, we got to fight because she was on the phone with him again. She knew that she's going to be on the phone with him. That's going to upset me, you know. I grabbed the phone and she was calling him baby and all that stuff. Officer, I went crazy.
So tell me what happened after you lost your cool.
Well, I grabbed the phone from her. She grabbed me around the arm and started twisting my arm. And we started going crazy. I mean, went nuts.
What was she doing?
She tore all of her Christmas present boxes up and destroyed everything and went just completely ape. Oh, yeah.
You grabbed the phone and she went into the bathroom.
Right, that's exactly how. She went in the bathroom, pissed off, crying. And I got the shotgun shot through the door. I don't know what possessed me. I'll just shoot through the door, and that was scary, and then she'll straighten up. What was I thinking about? You just go wild and crazy in your mind. I'm sure both of you all have had days where things go nuts and you have trouble controlling yourself.
Everybody,
sure.
I think he was trying to figure out his way of saying he just lost it, and it just happened. He was taken to the magistrate and charged with aggravated malicious wounding that night.
The nurses were hopeful, so that gave us hope.
She came out of intensive care because she was doing so well, but the damage with the buckshot in the brain started to bleed.
She got this look on her face, like she was very concerned. I said, "Mom, are you okay?" She said, "Yeah." And then she had a grand mal seizure.
And I remember looking at the head nurse, and her eyes told me what I already knew, that my sister was gone.
At that point, we knew we had a murder investigation.
Oh, believe me, I really didn't mean to do this.
We knew already some of what the defendant was going to testify in his defense.
I pointed the gun at the bathroom door in a rage. The gun went off and it hit her in the head.
She knew that she's going to be on the phone with him. That's going to upset me. I'm sure both of you all have had days where things go nuts and you have trouble controlling yourself.
Everybody,
sure.
That is a classic hot blood defense. He was hoping to reduce his exposure from potentially life in prison for first degree all the way down to 10 years in prison for the manslaughter. And we felt very strongly that that would not be justice. First degree murder was the natural charge in this case. We owed that to the victim, to get justice for our victim. First-degree murder requires premeditation and deliberation, but it doesn't require deliberation for any particular period of time. It can be very quick. You can deliberate in the time it takes to grab a knife and go after someone.
When we reenacted it, it took us approximately 15 seconds to get into the gun safe. And then another several seconds to load the gun and walk to the door of the bathroom. So you're looking at between 25 to 30 seconds before he shot the gun.
That's all time that he could have thought, you know, this is a really bad idea. And that's a lot of premeditation, legally speaking. The timeline of this case, it was an all-day event. There was a great deal of video camera footage within the home during the course of the day. And we could see them moving back and forth throughout the house throughout the day. It had started early in the day. They had argued earlier in the day. And she had had communications with this other gentleman. And he was trying to monitor anything that she was doing on her phone, any chance that he had to get a look at her phone so he could determine whether or not she was texting with this person. He had been focused in on this and riling himself up about this all day long.
Mr. Heflin never gave Miss Heflin any space. It's almost like he kept pushing instead of just separating himself from the situation. He continues to make contact with Miss Heflin. He could have just left her alone.
There was some fantastic work done by our investigators. Investigator Schwartz and the others on the team know that we are going to want to see some ballistics. We're going to want to see the trajectory. That's going to be very important in this case. We know that. The investigators load the buckshot holes with dowel so that we can see the general angle of fire. And we see that it is basically straight through the door, a little bit right to left, and a little bit of a downward angle. Just a little bit. And that's critical in this case. If you think about shotgun ammunition, the cartridges all look the same. It's what's inside that plastic cylinder that's important. Mr. Heflin purposely loaded double-aught buckshot in that shotgun. Double-aught buckshot is a larger size ball, where there's only like 8 or 9 of those balls in there. You're dealing with a very large projectile coming out at an extremely high speed with great force and impact, especially at close range. If you know that your wife is holding that door and you are going to fire through it, you know you're going to strike her. The use of those dowels through the hole showing the trajectory was brilliant police work to show us what his real intent was. We were ready to go to trial. We had more than sufficient evidence to obtain a conviction. We were very confident. But there is always risk. You can never be absolutely certain that a jury will determine your way. And you end up either not getting a conviction at all, or you get manslaughter. His lawyers came to us asking if there was any kind of a plea agreement we could reach, first-degree murder being 20 to life, where the defendant might have some hope of seeing the outside world and not dying in prison. And that's what basically gave us the opportunity to take manslaughter off the table, take first-degree life off the table, just focus on second degree. We know we're dealing with anywhere from 5 to 40 years in prison. So we took that to the family and discussed it with them.
When I heard about the plea deal, I was so angry. He deserved the worst that he could possibly get. This was so cruel. This was evil. But it just kind of made sense, because they said he's going to go away for a long time, and this just ensures that he doesn't walk. I just had to trust them, that they knew what they were doing.
Within the plea deal, he could not appeal the sentence. And so that was a little bit more acceptable.
We decided that we would treat the sentencing hearing like a mini trial of the case.
Yeah, she's a gurgling in there. She's breathing. If the ambulance gets here quick, she might be saved.
We played the 911 tape. We played snippets of his interviews. We did those things just to show that the fact that he'd murdered his wife didn't seem to really affect him emotionally at all.
And I got the shotgun shot through the door.
He was callous, premeditated, and just came after her with the intent to kill her.
it was a good verdict. It was a good sentence. And he's going to be in there for a long time before he's even eligible for parole.
While I would have loved to see him get the electric chair or a lethal injection or never get out of prison again, I think he got the best that they were able to give us.
If there's any lesson to be learned from this tragedy, Jenny made a blueprint of what road not to go down, and a warning to anyone out there to believe that they are in danger and to escape from that danger and to be able to live their life in freedom. Jenny had signed to be a donor, organ donor, and even in Jenny's death, she still gave life. And 5 people live today because of her. So throughout Jenny's life, she gave and gave and gave. But I know she's at peace now. She's no longer bullied. She is no longer lorded over and told what to do. And I will forever be proud of her for making that decision to finally break free.
Hôm nay mình xin gửi tới các bạn bài hát nữa của ca sĩ Thanh Lam. Bài hát Bên Em Là Biển Rộng. Tình ơi sao đi mãi những sông dài mênh mông, vòng tay ôm nỗi nhớ xôn xao biển rộng. Vì em mất anh mùa xuân đã qua rất nhanh, còn chẳng nỗi đau tươi xanh. Tình anh như cơn lũ cuốn trôi bờ mưa rông, tình em như sông vắng trong xanh phẳng lặng. Mùa thu đã qua, mùa đông đã sang, tình đã ra đi vội vàng. Khi em say sóng thôi không xô bờ, khi anh say em đã trở vỡ. Con sông lang thang đã khô nơi đầu buồn, bên em biển đã chết. Tình anh như cơn lũ cuốn trôi bờ mưa rông, tình em như sông vắng trong xanh phẳng lặng. Mùa thu đã qua, mùa đông đã sang, tình đã ra đi vội vàng. Khi em say anh sóng thôi không xô bờ, khi anh say em đã trở vỡ. Con sông lang thang đã khô nơi đầu nguồn, bên em biển đã chết. Tình anh như cơn lũ cuốn trôi bờ mưa rông, tình anh như sông vắng trong xanh phẳng lặng. Mùa thu đã qua, mùa đông đã sang, tình đã ra đi vội vàng. Tình ơi sao đi mãi nên sông dài mênh mông, vòng tay ôm nỗi nhớ xôn xao biển rộng. Vì em mất anh, mùa xuân đã qua rất nhanh, còn chẳng nỗi đau tuổi xanh.
This case will always be with me. I will always remember it.
Nancy Blackburn and her husband Ian were found in the trunk of their car Monday night.
Nancy had ligature marks consistent with strangulation.
God, he hog-tied her while she was still alive.
There's no doubt somebody was being extremely cruel for whatever reason.
We did have a series of break-ins over the winter. Some guy staying in vacant summer homes.
You ever ID the guy?
Nope. We just call him the house hermit.
As soon as I walked in the door, I hear, "Don't move or I'll shoot."
Listen, you think you could describe this guy to a sketch artist?
Absolutely.
At this point, we believe the house servant is the one responsible for the Blackburns' murder. But we had no clue who he was.
If you think you see him, do not approach him. Clear. Call 911. He is armed and extremely dangerous.
We had to find this person. It was, I think, midnight or a little bit later than midnight that I got the call. It was in Forest Hill area in the north end of the city of Toronto. It's not normally where you expect to find any violent occurrence. It was unusual.
What do we got? 2 victims. Ian and Nancy Blackburn, reported missing from Caledon OPP earlier today. They're in a cottage up there. Where are the bodies? In the trunk of Nancy's car.
The bodies looked like they'd been in there for a while. The man was fully clothed and the woman naked. The woman obviously had ligature marks around her wrists, her legs, her ankles. There's no doubt somebody was being extremely cruel for whatever reason to Nancy.
Thanks.
In the car, there was a tissue, and the tissue appeared to have blood on it. And we weren't sure whose blood it was.
Call a forensics truck. Tell them to take the car with the body still inside. Nobody touches a thing in there. You already checked the house? Yeah, just mail and newspapers from a couple days ago. It's probably when the crime happened. I mean, the house is pretty clean otherwise. Nothing seems to be missing. Any signs of violence? No, but the forensics team hasn't gone through yet. Who found the bodies? Jamie Osborne, the nephew. He's pretty shocked. Yeah. Jamie? Detective Doug Grady. I understand you're the one that found them.
Yeah.
How long have they been missing?
I don't know. My dad asked me to check up on them, but when I got here, I noticed the cat didn't have any food and water, and I thought that was weird. So I checked the car and popped the trunk.
What made you pop the trunk?
My dad asked me to. When I couldn't find them.
It seems like an unusual request. Check the trunk for your aunt and uncle.
Why would anyone do this? They're good people.
I don't know, Jamie. But we're gonna figure it out.
Nancy Blackburn and her husband Ian were found in the trunk of their car Monday night. The car was parked outside their North Toronto home. A relative made the grim discovery. The Blackburns had not been seen in 6 days.
They appeared to be nice people. Everybody seemed to like them. Ian had a real estate business. Nancy, on the other hand, was a public health nurse working for the city of Toronto. They had no children. They lived in a nice neighborhood. They were your average, normal Toronto downtown people.
We'd like to know the last time they were alive. That would help us to know the time of death.
Police can't say where Mrs. Blackburn was murdered or when. The Blackburns owned another home in Caledon. A second family car was found in the driveway there. Police now say they don't know where the couple died. Was it in Toronto, where Nancy was last seen alive? Or in Caledon, where Ian went to repair the plumbing in their historic country home?
Caledon is a rural area north of Toronto. It was becoming an up and developing area where huge homes were being built. Ian and Nancy's farmhouse would be treated as a cottage retreat type of place. It was a large property. It was quiet. It was a nice place.
Ian never parked there, you know. For 25 years, he parked over there.
You are?
Orville Osborne. I'm married to Ian's sister. We share the property with him.
Osborne. Your son found the victims. Jamie?
That's right. Poor thing.
Listen, if you don't mind my asking you, why'd you have him pop the trunk?
Honestly, I don't know. We were desperate to find them. We hadn't heard from them all week. Then when I saw Ian's car parked there, that's when I knew something was wrong. But I never would have imagined.
Sorry for your loss.
You know, Ian's father passed this whole area down to us after he died. It's a special place. See that round barn over there? That was built in 1890. There's only 3 of them left in the whole province. You know why they built them that way?
Why?
So the devil couldn't back you into a corner.
Detective Grady? Excuse me.
Was there any animus between the Blackburns and Orville over the land of that huge property up in Caledon? It was a possibility. Maybe there was a motive there.
Hey, Jim Hutchinson.
Nice to meet you, Jim.
Call me Hutch.
The OPP forensic team were going through that house piece by piece. The officers basically on their hands and knees looking at everything.
And that's when we found this. We tested it. It matches Nancy's blood.
Boom. That was our crime scene.
The tissue with the blood on it found in the front seat came back. It's not our victims, so it could be the killer. Nancy had ligature marks consistent with strangulation, but not Ian. He died from a different form of asphyxia. They think he had a bag over his head.
How about sexual assault?
No evidence of it?
God, he hog-tied her while she was still alive.
Her arms were tied behind her back and her ankles were tied to the wrists. The severe wounds to her were such that she must have been in a lot of pain at that particular point. The person that did it was just throwing her around like a suitcase. So now you basically go back and try and figure out where your victims were, what they were doing at the last point that they were alive that you know of.
All right. Ian, last seen. Leaving work Tuesday night, 5 p.m. He's going to Caledon to check on the cottage. Okay, this is Nancy's last activity. She calls a friend from the Toronto home at 7 p.m. that night. She's looking for Ian. Check this out. Phone records. Approximately 1 hour later, 7:56, 5-minute phone call from the cottage to the Toronto home. But after that, we got nothing. So, what was said during that phone call?
The interesting thing is that the phone call occurred and Nancy drove up there. We don't know if it was a request from Ian for her to come up or from the suspect. Why did that person have to have Nancy come to the cottage?
Okay. Is there a lot of crime in Caledon? Murders, missing persons?
Not usually, but 2 guns were stolen from Blackburn's neighbor in Caledon. And Caroline Case, she's a Toronto woman. She went missing after she left her shop 6 months ago.
What happened to her?
47-year-old Carolyn Case, who was last seen at her import store on Bloor Street West in Etobicoke. About 12 hours after she was reported missing, her wrecked Mercedes-Benz station wagon was found in a ditch near Caledon, north of Metro.
We searched the area for days. She's still missing.
We had these 2 cases. The Blackburns, who were taken from Caledon, bodies are found in Toronto. And then we had Carolyn Case abducted from Toronto and taken to Caledon. That was something we had to investigate further.
Anything else?
We did have a series of break-ins over the winter. Some guy staying in vacant summer homes.
You ever ID the guy?
Nope. We just call him the house hermit.
This person who was doing these break and enters, it seemed to be unusual, but it didn't seem to be violent.
We're gonna dig into that.
Okay. I'm gonna focus on closing out the family.
So now we have to start answering the simple questions, like who would have a motive, opportunity, or means to do this? What you do in most investigations, you start close to the family. There's something different about funerals where somebody's murdered. People will sometimes look around and wonder, is it you? Is it you? Because nobody knows. And I attended the Blackburns' funeral to see the reaction of people. Some people may feign remorse.
Thank you for coming, Detective.
Of course, my condolences.
My son can't shake the image of their bodies in the trunk. And my wife is devastated. Ian was her brother. I don't know how to comfort them.
I've seen cases where it's put on and it's quite obvious. In this case, I didn't have that because they're all decent people who unfortunately found themselves in an awful, awful situation. At the same time, the officers who investigated all of these break-and-enters, they spoke to everybody who reported a break-in that we thought was related to the house hermit. We found that there was a similar incident, not in Caledon, but in a place called Tiny Township, north of Caledon. And Sam Appleton had a cottage there.
We were just stopping by to see how this place weathered the winter. My wife Rose stayed in the car. As soon as I walked in the door, I noticed the TV cable was running up the stairs into the bedroom. The door was closed. It was very warm in there, and the smell was horrible. Then from behind me, I hear, "Don't move or I'll shoot." And I see a gun. And then the man said, "Don't look at me."
Can you describe the gun?
I don't know, a handgun. Then he had me come back down the stairs and come lie down on the floor, right there. Then he tells me he's coming back to Toronto with me. He says he's committed a bad fraud and he doesn't want to go to jail. So we get in the car, me in front driving with Rose, him in the back.
You didn't want to drive?
No, he insisted I drive. I acted like nothing was wrong. I told Rose that the guy was just getting a ride back to Toronto, but she quickly realized what was going on. We come to a busy intersection. I said, "Either you shoot me here or get out now." Must have scared him because he just took our money and ran off.
Sam Appleton was a pretty gutsy individual, but his story helped me understand what may have happened to the Blackburns.
Listen, you think you could describe this guy to a sketch artist?
Absolutely.
We now know the house hermit was definitely armed. He's brazen. Is he a person who's now going to escalate his criminal behavior? We had to find this person. I finally get a call from the duty desk. An officer had found weird garbage out by the Blackburn farmhouse.
You having a picnic?
No, but the house hermit was. I wouldn't touch that.
Why? What's in them?
Feces.
Oh, God.
These bottles are filled with urine.
Urine in a bottle. Fecal matter wrapped up. It was totally unusual.
Take a look at these. These are the handwritten lists he leaves behind everywhere else.
It's military equipment. It's pretty obscure stuff.
Warplanes, tanks, cannons, firearms. It was like somebody was playing some type of war game against themselves. It was getting warm, so people were going to be around their cottages. We were quite concerned about finding him before he could do something else. We now had at least a sketch of what the house hermit may look like. This person is out there somewhere, and we can't identify who he is. From the Appleton incident, we had fingerprints that were directly related to the house hermit. We ran the prints through our national fingerprint database, and there is no result attributing it to anybody we know. How could his fingerprints not be on the national data bank? This is somebody who's been exhibiting quite severe criminal behavior. At this point, we believe the house hermit is the one responsible for the Blackburns murder, but we had no clue who he was.
We gotta go public with this.
Tell them what?
Everything about the house hermit, the break-ins, the sketch, even the strange military lists. I mean, somebody's got to recognize those, right? We got to stop this guy.
Now, we believe the man who killed the Blackburns is also responsible for a series of cottage break-ins in the Caledon area. He's known to camp out in these cottages for several days at a time, so we call him the house hermit. Now, he always leaves behind these handwritten military lists like a calling card. So for this reason, we think he's a military buff. Now, if you think you see him, or if you think you know him, do not approach him. Call 911. He is armed and extremely dangerous.
Usually when you have a press conference, in a major homicide case, you can get 200 calls. In this particular case, we got one call. There was a woman in Orangeville, 30 minutes north of Toronto, who had some information.
Allison Shaw? Detective Doug Grady, Metro Police. Now, you said on the phone that you know who the wanted man is in the Blackburn murders.
Yeah, it's David Snow. David ran a side business with my husband, Darius, and last fall he disappeared and left us saddled with debt. And so to recoup our debt, we cleared out his stuff. And that's when I saw the writings. There were military entries in a journal. Hundreds of them. And the handwriting is exactly the same as what's in the paper.
You said that he disappeared last fall. Do you remember when exactly?
Sometime early October. No one around here has seen or heard from him since.
Do you think David Snow would be capable of something like this?
Oh, he is a creep. Anything is possible with that guy.
Okay, thanks very much.
David Snow was a friend of the family. Allison did not like him one bit. With her husband, Darius thought he was a good guy, just a little odd. We wanted to speak to Darius Shaw as soon as we could.
I don't see it, no. David was a weird guy, but he wasn't no killer.
That's not what your wife thinks.
Yeah, well, we see him differently. She'd tell you he used to babysit our kids. My daughter calls him Uncle David. He's just a regular small-town guy. He's a bit odd, sure, misunderstood, but he's not violent.
So the two of you were close?
Yeah, we had a business together, taking apart old frame structures, putting them back together. Money was good, too, until David took off, stuck me with $2,600 in debt.
Do you know where I might find David now?
He's probably hiding out somewhere around here. No one's seen him in months, but he can't be far.
Why's that?
He just walks everywhere. There's a pathological fear of driving. Like I said, odd.
Once we identified David Snow, we started talking to people in Orangeville. A lot of the men said David was just a little off. Most of the women we talked to said he was creepy, said there was something about him. We didn't like being around him. He didn't do anything aggressive, as they would say, but they just felt uncomfortable around him. We got that intuition from a lot of different women.
He does have a record. Orangeville charged him with fraud last summer for writing bad checks.
Well, that's what Appleton said, but we ran the prints and nothing came back.
They made a mistake. They thought they needed a conviction before they uploaded them. Regardless, the prints match.
David Snow is the house hermit.
Yeah. Now all we need to do is find him.
We needed to talk to David Snow's mother. I'm hoping she's going to give us assistance in locating him. His mother lived in a nice neighborhood in the West End of Toronto.
Caroline Case.
She ran the Jeweled Elephant on Bloor, right?
47-year-old Carolyn Case was last seen at her import store on Bloor Street West in Etobicoke.
Caroline Case. She's a Toronto woman. She went missing after she left her shop 6 months ago.
Hi, Doug Grady. Listen, I am staring at the Jeweled Elephant, and you will never guess who lives right nearby. David Snow's mother.
I've met many mothers of victims and of accused, but I've never met a mother who said what she said.
I'm terrified of him.
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Snow. Do you still see him?
Not really. The last time I saw him was last fall, just after his antiques business had fallen apart. I was so scared. Before he came, I hid all the sharp knives.
Did David ever physically harm you?
Yes. That was the reason that I had to leave the house in Orangeville, the house where he still lives.
She was afraid of her own son. She kept that house so that he'd live in it and he wouldn't come live with her.
He grew up in that house, the whole family did. And one by one, we all left.
Everybody in the family was tiptoeing around David. You know, that leave him alone, just let him do what he's doing.
Police! Come again?
When I left the house, it was because of the abuse. It was a nightmare.
She had hope that he didn't kill those people, but she didn't doubt for a second that he did. David's mother confirmed that he attended her place in early October, the date just before Carolyn Case went missing.
Hello? Snow?
At the kitchen? Yeah. Clear. Clear. Clear.
We go in this house, and it looks like somebody hasn't lived there for quite some time.
Here, hold this.
We found a hidden room.
You should get in here. There's
various pictures from catalogs, cutouts of women but not quite pornography. It was a bit odd. And it told us a little bit about this person's psychological side. There's all kinds of military books with military equipment, ships, tanks, planes, all over the house. We don't know where he is or what he's going to do next.
He's definitely on the run.
So we put out a Canada-wide warrant for his arrest.
Police say David Snow does not drive. They believe he is in hiding in the Caledon area. He is armed and dangerous.
As predators escalate, they become more dangerous, and he was escalating. So where would he go from there?
Police are looking for anyone who may have seen Christina Robertson last Friday. And they're never gonna find you.
Just got another report on the house hermit from Caledon. The owners just got back from a winter in Venezuela.
This doesn't help. None of this helps. Just confirms what we already know. We need to know where he is now. I mean, he may still be in Ontario. He could also be anywhere in the country. All right. Let's send out everything we have on Snow. Fingerprints, the military writings, the serial numbers of every gun he's stolen. I mean, he's not just sitting around hiding. We need every police agency in the country to know everything that could possibly identify him, because he's going to do this again. And when he does, we need to know about it.
All right. I'm on it.
The whole time we're looking for him in the Greater Toronto area, unbeknownst to us, we find that he was out in British Columbia the entire time.
What's happening?
Wait here.
8 days ago, she closed up for work at 6 o'clock at this East Vancouver photography studio and disappeared.
This is a classic, unexplainable missing persons case. There appears to be no reasonable explanation as to why this young lady's gone missing.
Found her at a video store. You like?
During that time, the video store clerk goes missing, and the RCMP find the car in Mount Seymour Park.
Got a Beetle in Mount Seymour Park. License plate matches the missing one.
In the car, they found a firearm that was stolen from Caledon. That's how we knew it was David Snow who had that car and was in that area.
There's another one
Where?
Over there.
Are you okay?
The women are rescued, and Snow takes off further into that Mount Seymour forest. And so RCMP North Vancouver conducted the largest manhunt they've ever done.
They're searching the forest and its maze of trails for one suspect.
They brought in as many officers as they could because this guy was now out in an area that is heavily traveled by a lot of people.
All vehicles leaving the park are being searched. All entrances into the area are closed.
So at the same time, I get the first plane that's flying out west and go to Vancouver.
He never untied you.
Once, when he kidnapped the other woman, he walked me to the car and he told me to wait for him. I was alone and untied, and I could have walked away.
Why didn't you?
I didn't know where he was. I didn't want to get shot. I was terrified. I remember thinking to myself, this is the end. He's gonna kill me.
I'm so sorry I have to ask this. Is this the guy?
It's him, yeah. He felt like a very sick kid. And I was his toy. I was just something for him to play with. He had no conscience.
He held her captive and tied up for 8 days. I was amazed by how she had gotten through this and survived it. She was a strong young woman.
It's believed the suspect had been camping out in this dense parkland. Police believe he's still here, trapped within countless roadblocks.
RCMP conduct a search throughout this particular park, and all night long it's going on. They have helicopters. These are huge parks with lots of forest areas within David Snow's comfort zone. And so he got to the Suspension Bridge restaurant, which is in the Capilano Park, and saw that there was somebody closing up the restaurant. So he took her to the back, not knowing the police were in the area. And the officer hears movement behind the building.
Police!
David Snow was caught in the act, sexually assaulting and attempting to murder a woman. An ambulance came, took her to the hospital right away, and she survived this incident.
A dramatic story unfolding in British Columbia tonight, revolving around this man, David Snow. Police arrested him yesterday after a manhunt that chased him out of the mountains around North Vancouver. They accused him of kidnapping 2 women and trying to kill a third.
You're not happy to see him. It's not a job satisfaction, like, okay, now we've got you, because you're still working on your case all the way through.
I've already spoken to my lawyer. I have nothing to say to you.
When you're sitting across from a murderer and you're asking questions, there's only one person in that room that knows everything, and it's not you. So we thought, okay, let's throw everything out. Let's just see what sticks.
Okay, but there's just one thing I want to know, okay? What did you have Ian say to Nancy on the phone that night to convince her to come up to the cottage? All right, well, that's fine, David, because we know about everything else you did. You made it quite easy for us, actually. We know that you killed Ian and Nancy Blackburn.
We had DNA on the tissue matching up with David Snow's DNA. It was a perfect match. That was basically the nail in his coffin, so to speak.
Caroline Case. We know that you spotted her after visiting your mom one day. We know that you took her from her store. We know you made her drive you home.
I'm gonna tell you everything, but I need a guarantee.
What guarantee?
I don't get a day. Over 25 years.
I didn't want to make a deal with a killer and allow him a sentence that I felt was unfair for what he did, and that is life in jail, opportunity for parole after 25 years, but not an outright deal where it's 25 and done.
We're going to put you away for a long, long time, David.
We felt so adamant that we wanted to find Caroline Case and that David Snow was responsible for her murder. There is no doubt in our mind.
He is a reasonable suspect in the Caroline Case matter.
We asked the OPP to do another search in that field where the car had been overturned.
Today, a convoy of cars carrying up to 100 officers moved into the area to conduct a blade-by-blade search of the grass. Police found the remains to missing businesswoman Caroline Case.
There was an autopsy, but there wasn't enough evidence to relate back to David Snow. I'm convinced that David Snow killed Caroline Case. But me being convinced is not enough.
The fate of the man nicknamed the House Hermit is now in the jury's hands.
What we could do is only convict him for what we actually had. And we had him for the Blackburns, and so that's the ones we charged him with, and that's the ones we could prove.
The Crown says the most important piece of evidence is a bloody tissue found in Nancy Blackburn's car. The stained tissue contains Snow's DNA.
The only way we can properly speak for Ian and Nancy Blackburn is to have a conviction in the end.
As the verdict was read out, Snow had no reaction, simply staring downwards, never looking at the jury. Life in prison with no chance of parole.
We got a conviction for Ian and Nancy. We couldn't do it for some other victims.
Asked by the judge if he had any words, Snow mumbled, "I've got nothing to say."
I don't think he feels bad about anything he's done. He's a psychopath, and I think feeling guilty is something he's not capable of.
I've had the occasion to actually be quite close to him and stare him right in the eye, and it's just a blank stare. It just doesn't seem to be anything there.
Ian Blackburn's sister says justice has been served.
A long 6 months waiting for this to come, and so thrilled that we finally have a verdict we all wanted.
That it's done. We're finished with this guy. He's now going to a place that is better than what he deserves, but it's finished.